The recordings of the Standard News podcast this week are being done on site rather than in our usual facilities, as the Standard newspaper is moving to 84 Water Street. And so next week, our facilities will be established and we will be recording in our usual manner. We hope this week's podcast satisfies your need for news dissemination. Thank you.
Mandated vaccination policy, reopening pause among newly announced Ontario directives. Dan Kearns, local journalism initiative reporter for The Standard. Durham, Kawartha. The Ontario government announced a number of new measures aimed at protecting the public from COVID-19 on Tuesday, August 17th. One of the directives put in place by the Chief Medical Officer of Health's office makes it mandatory for hospitals, home and community care service providers, and ambulance services to have a COVID-19 vaccination policy in place for their employees and volunteers. Effective September 7th, the directive will require covered organizations to implement policies which require employees and others in these sectors to either provide proof of full vaccination against COVID-19 or provide a documented medical reason for not being vaccinated. In addition, covered organizations will be required to offer an educational session about the benefits and risks of COVID-19 vaccination, Chief Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kieran Moore explained at a press conference. An Ontario government press release adds, individuals who do not provide proof of full vaccination against COVID-19 will be required to undertake regular antigen testing. The province is also going to start offering third doses of the vaccine to those at high risk. The press release explains those eligible include transplant recipients, people who have hematological cancers, and residents of long-term care homes and high-risk retirement homes. A third dose can provide an improved immune response for these individuals, Dr. Moore said. But it's very focused and narrow in the eligibility criteria. Lastly, the province is pausing Ontario's exit from the reopening framework, delaying a full return to normal. We need to get vaccination policies in place and our vaccination rates up, Dr. Moore stressed.
Brock Township provides update on supportive housing project talks. Dan Kearns, local journalism initiative reporter for The Standard. Brock. The Township of Brock has recently provided an update regarding the Durham region-led Beaverton Supportive Housing Project. A number of concerns were identified, both by Township Council and Brock residents, about the compatibility of the proposal with the surrounding community. Council has retained a lawyer to assist in the ongoing negotiations with Durham Region, in hopes of achieving a mutually beneficial agreement that addresses the concerns raised, a Brock Township press release stated. With decisions regarding this issue being made largely in closed session meetings, the Township wants residents to know they will provide them with more information on this subject when it is appropriate to do so. The Township of Brock endeavors to keep the public informed and assures its residents their input and feedback is being addressed, and if an agreement has been reached between Brock and Durham Region, full public disclosure of the agreement will be made available, the press release added. There has been much discussion between the Township and the region regarding the 50-unit supportive housing development slated to be created in Brock Township. In November, councillors voted to pass an interim control bylaw to prohibit the establishment of supportive housing and modular construction, including manufactured dwelling houses, for a period of 12 months in order to allow for the appropriate completion of further research and consultation. Protest rallies held at local hospitals. Dan Kearns, local journalism initiative reporter for The Standard, Durham. The union representing registered practical nurses, personal support workers, environmental cleaners, and other staff at local Durham hospitals has been holding protest rallies at hospitals in Whitby, Uxbridge, Port Perry, and Bowmanville this past week. Nearly 70,000 Ontario hospital workers who are members of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, CUPE, and the CEIU Healthcare are currently negotiating a new provincial contract. But after working the past 18 months at a hectic pace in the pandemic, these workers feel devalued and betrayed by both the province and their hospital employers, read a CUPE press release. Michael Hurley, president of CUPE's Ontario Council of Hospital Unions, explained to the Standard these rallies are meant to highlight two issues. There are two issues we're trying to draw attention to. The first is the Ford government passed legislation that limits wage increases for public sector workers to no more than 1% per year. So this means healthcare workers and hospital workers, in particular, are limited to no more than 1% in total compensation for each of the first 3 years of their collective agreement. Inflation in July was 4.1%. It means they'll be taking a real wage cut of over 3% in the first year alone, so perhaps 9% in the first 3 years lost to inflation, Mr. Hurley said. The union's press release adds the same past legislation also impacts hospital workers' ability to negotiate much-needed increases to mental health supports like psychotherapy and post-traumatic stress counseling. Many of the workers in the polling that we've done indicated to us that they are suffering from stress, depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, all issues which have become more pronounced through COVID-19, Mr. Hurley explained. The CUPE representative stated the Ontario Hospital Association, OHA, another party they are negotiating with, put a number of concessions on the table the OHA wants workers to take. These represent fundamental losses to existing rights around job security and ability for people to move into other jobs around the kinds of protections they had. The rallies are also targeted at asking the hospitals to pull back their concessions, added Mr. Hurley. There currently still remain issues for healthcare workers receiving personal protective equipment, he shared. Hospital workers have had ongoing trouble accessing the N95 masks and other protective equipment. However, it appears there is consensus between the Hospital Association and the union on the length of the next contract. The last contract was 4 years long. We prefer a long-term agreement. I know the hospitals do too. I think we have a shared interest in stability and being able to plan, Mr. Hurley stated. CUPE also feels the recently announced requirement for vaccination policies in hospitals made by the Ontario government is a good compromise. I think the government took a good position on the vaccination policy. First of all, we strongly encourage all healthcare workers to be vaccinated. But as you know, there are some people who cannot be vaccinated for medical reasons or their religious beliefs, Mr. Hurley explained. I think the government struck a good balance there. The current CUPE contract expires at the end of September, and the CEIU contract expires in early October. You've got to be kidding. What were they thinking? By Jonathan van Bilsen. The first time I heard anything about Canadian interpreters in Afghanistan was June of this year. I quickly understood there could potentially be an issue in the safety of these Afghan men and women who had been helping Canadian soldiers with the language barriers of the war-torn nation. I was pleased to see the government stated in July they would be assuring the well-being of these dedicated people by offering them asylum in Canada. I was stunned to hear there were 20,000 interpreters, but apparently, with families, that number is very much in line with the Americans, French, British, Dutch, and other countries who sought the services of these people. Everyone knows the Western troops have pretty much pulled out of Afghanistan, but as weeks rolled by, very little was done to help the interpreters and their families. Emails, tweets, and all types came from the affected people, begging for our help. And again, the government assured them they would not be left behind. After 20 years of fighting in war-scarred country, which came on the heels of 12 years of Russian attempts to liberate the people, we have learned the Taliban, a ruthless terrorist organization, will stop at nothing to secure Afghanistan's borders. Now they have. Here we are, 3 months after the government's announcement of liberating people who have put their lives on the lines. Very little has been done. Comments like, the Taliban, moved much quicker than we expected. We will get everyone out, said as late as 10 months ago, and it will depend on the Taliban allowing people to get through to the airport, shocked me. What happened to military intelligence? When I wrote this article, a few hundred people had been airlifted to safety. We have seen images of people hanging on to planes as they took off, graphic photos of mothers handing their babies to soldiers on the wall around the airport, and people in hiding being hunted by the new regime. So why has it taken so long, and possibly too late, for us to honor a commitment? Make no mistake, many people will lose their lives because of this, and of course, now, the emphasis is refocusing on an election. I'm very disheartened by the actions the government has failed to take. and am ashamed of the bureaucracy which held this process up. We all know negotiating with terrorists will not work, and while we waffle, the lives of thousands of people who were there for us when we needed them are at risk. Jonathan van Bilsen is a television host, award-winning photographer, published author, columnist, and keynote speaker. Watch his show, Jonathan van Bilsen's Photos in Travel, on Rogers TV, the Standard website, or YouTube.
Buy local and fresh with Durham Farm Fresh. Courtney McClure for the Standard. North Durham. Since the pandemic was declared in 2020, Ontario has encouraged residents to buy local. The Durham Farm Fresh Market Association is a not-for-profit organization. Durham Farm Fresh represents retailers, chefs, restaurants, and farmers markets across Durham region. It was started in 1993, and its goal is to help people and producers market their locally grown products. And, as the name suggests, their members are made up of local farms spanning Durham region. If you visit the Durham Region Farm Fresh website, you will notice an availability schedule. When you click What's in Season, a chart pops up showing you the average growing times for each product. But they caution customers to keep the weather in mind. Weather can affect the growth of some local produce. If you scroll further, you'll also see a We're Hiring section. Durham Farm Fresh has one part-time summer position. This position lasts for 16 weeks during the summer and is available to a student. Durham Farm Fresh's marketing assistant helps develop and enhance their programs and marketing campaigns too. Interested students must be between the age of 15 and 30. You can find out more on their website at durhamfarmfresh.ca. Some of the fruit harvested includes pumpkins, apples, strawberries, and so much more. They are passionate about getting healthy, local food from our farms to your table, they wrote. If you click on the Find a Member button, it will take you to an interactive map with a list of all the farms that make up Durham Farm Fresh. At the bottom of their homepage, they have a list of reasons why people should buy locally. According to Durham Farm Fresh, local food is tastier, fresher, and is full of nutrients. Local food doesn't travel long distances, so it stays fresh longer than imported fruits and vegetables, and therefore has retained more of its nutrition. Buying local today supports our farmers and ensures there will be farms in your community tomorrow. If you buy local produce, you support local farming and agriculture within Durham region. This not only helps keep farms alive, but it also impacts the community of Durham region. Farmers are good stewards of the land, taking care to preserve it for future generations. Locally grown and marketed food usually has less packaging and so helps reduce Durham region's ecological footprint. You can follow them on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook for updates. For more information, visit their website at durhamfarmfresh.ca.
The Standard Podcast was produced by Greenstream Studio for the Standard newspaper.